Hi, hello, and welcome to LX2 Codependency Coaching. I am Stella. We are recording the audio and I'm recording the video, but we'll see if the video happens. In the meantime, I do want to start talking about the things that we were going to talk about today. And so, as it does, right, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm doing all kinds of things. I think I shared with you guys before that I'm listening to the Monica Lewinsky Reclaiming podcast. And then I'm also listening to Diary of a CEO. And so I kind of switch between the two depending on my drive. But I wanted to talk about this idea of losing yourself and also, kind of reclaiming or uh, coming back to yourself, right? And I also did another cool thing last week. I went to a presentation by Don Jose Ruiz, who is the son of Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the Four Agreements, right? But this presentation was specifically on the fifth agreement. If you get an opportunity, I recommend the Four Agreements all the time to clients. And part of that is because they're just really helpful rules to remember. And so I was thinking about all of these things, right? And so during the presentation, he referred often to coming back to ourselves and how we are the love of our lives. And I kind of came to that conclusion in February of 21, I think. I think it was Valentine's Day, and I was just talking about how I am the love of my life. And so when he said that, I was just like, okay, this is not just a me thing. Like, this is a movement. This is an opportunity for us to really recognize that we are in relationship with ourselves our whole lives. And I was thinking about this idea, right, of like coming back to yourself. As I've worked with clients often, it's a matter of reconfiguring your orientation so often, and especially with codependency, we focus so much on other people and what their expectations and needs are. Even as a child, right? As a tiny little baby being, our first interactions are fully based on our own needs, right? Food, shelter, clothing. But then as we start to become aware of the other people in our experience, then we orient ourselves to their experience and their emotions and all of those things. And so I was thinking about this idea of losing ourselves, right? And we lose ourselves at so many different stages and phases of our life, and we don't recognize that we're doing it. It's just something that happens. And I was thinking about losing ourselves, losing myself, and different points in my life where I lost maybe my direction in what my needs were or who I am or what my values are, right? And thinking about how we lose ourselves and what we lose ourselves to. I was thinking about, how often we get into new relationships. And I talk about it in codependency and romantic relationships. It's a lot of times, we show up and meet someone new, and then we, are so fascinated by who you are and what you're about and all those things. And the other person is hopefully equally interested in who we are and what we are about. And somewhere along the way, we start to then, we get interested and curious about, those things about that other person. And then we start to maybe change some of our parts. And I have said, we either cut parts of ourselves off consciously or we start to change our behavior. And sometimes that's for the better, right? And we start to improve some of the ways that we do things. Like, we start eating differently or working out more or working out less. And, we start to, combine who we are with another person, right? The same is true when we make a person or become parents, is that the child's needs become super important, and so we lose some of those ways about the way that we take care of ourselves. I was thinking about, even in jobs or new situations, we tend to, kind of accommodate to those different schedules or different expectations, and in doing so at times we lose parts of ourselves. We lose those things that we are used to in terms of how we function in the world, right? And then after things change or end, we, kind of look around at the life that we are living in, and does it reflect those values or those needs or how we kind of see things, right? And so that's where my brain was. And I was thinking about, how are we able to come back to ourselves? And is that self the same, right? Does it fit? I think I've shared with you before, like I've got clients who, have one narration or narrative about their life history, and sometimes they have cherry picked those really kind of tough moments and made that who they are. And the reality is that no one of us is just one thing. We are many things, and we pick up new parts and different experiences throughout our life. I was thinking specifically about my ecological senses, right? I am a huge person who, recycles and, tries to use not single use items, single use water bottles, for example. Don't do it. Can't do it. Unless I'm on a trip, and then I will buy a gallon of, purified water or whatever it is, and I will use that on a trip. Although now I have a container in my car that I refill. Because I travel so often and I go to different places. I was in California recently. I'm going back to El Paso in a few weeks. I'm going to Colorado soon. And so when I drive, I take a gallon of water. And now I have, a reusable container. But I like the taste of my water. Not just the water in New Mexico, right? Because I filter that. But I do drink water regularly, and so having water in the car is important. I think even when I was in Europe, if we were doing a road trip, which we did several, I'd make sure to get a gallon of water and put it in the car, right? That is very important to me to be hydrated, but it's also very important to me to minimize my ecological impact on the planet. However, after going to Europe and recognizing that, there's so many people all over the world, literally on the planet, that don't care about it as much as I do. There are some things that I am not so precious about, right? It's funny when I came back and somebody put, straws on the table. I used a plastic straw, and my friends were like, "What the hell? What's happening right now?" And I just said, it's I can't fight it all by myself. And though I still use my own straw most of the time, if somebody puts a straw on the table, I don't freak out, right? I will kind of refuse plastic silverware or whatever if I can. And if not, it's okay. Like, I'm not going to lose my brain about it. I still won't use a plastic bag, though. There used to be a time when, like, my friends would come to the house, and even if they, like, bought something, let's say for a potluck or whatever, in a plastic bag, they wouldn't bring it in, because I used to get really upset about it, or at least, like, have feelings about it. And I'm not so precious about it now, but it is still something that is important to me. And so that is a value. It is part of who I am. And I try to be conscientious about it as much as possible. I'm not going to full on, use plastic bags and all the things. But there was a time when, if I would go into someone else's house, I would be really judgy about it and whatever. And I don't do that anymore. It's not helpful to me or them and to the relationship. But really thinking about how that is one of the ways that I am fully, authentically myself. And when I get away from it, sometimes that's okay. And sometimes I feel guilty or I have significant feelings about it. And so I lose relationship. I lose connection when I get really angry or frustrated about someone else's choices. I'm better about it today, but there was a time, right? And thinking about, again, when we're in relationship or when we're in a new position or, we're doing something different, we are trying to add new parts to ourselves, right? We're trying to integrate them. Whether or not they fit, that's a different thing. But I do recognize that a lot of times when we are going through difficult things, right, we lose ourselves to grief. We lose ourselves to anxiety. And a lot of times, especially because this is what I do for work, I really help to orient people to recognizing that, like, if we're worried about uncertainty and all the things in the future, that creates anxiety. If we're holding on to things that have happened before now and really just cherry picking those, hard memories or whatever, focusing on those negative things, it creates depression. It creates a stuckness to a time that is not what we're experiencing right now. And I think that it's so important sometimes when we have, well, so important all the time, but whatever. It's important to recognize when we start to lose ourselves to those situations or circumstances. And I do understand that often when we are in those really hard times, we tend to feel like this is going to be forever. And as I've shared with you guys before, nothing, literally nothing, is forever. Like, it is right now and it is happening. And then we get to choose how much we attach to it. And if we start to lose ourselves or to feel as though this is going to be a permanent experience, then it shuts off all of these other things, right? It shuts off our ability to experience joy. It shuts off our experience to experience wonder. It shuts off our ability to perceive that we can grow past this situation or circumstance. And it's really more challenging then to come back to, who am I? What do I feel? What do I believe? What do I want? Right? How do I want to do this differently? I can imagine that, and it's been my experience, that certainly in parenting, we lose our shit and we get so upset about something because we're in a hurry or we have an expectation of behavior in certain spaces or circumstances. I've shared with you guys often that, my family used to go to church on Sundays, and there was all this kerfuffle. I talked about it in the book. Like, my mom would get so angry trying to get everybody ready, and then we'd go and have this faith-based experience, and she would have this expectation of behavior, and if we didn't, then we were in trouble. But it created such a stressful experience for the kids, for sure, that we would have all of this trying to get ready, and then we'd get there and then everything was fine, and then the minute we got back in the car, it was a whole nother thing. And so it was challenging. I know it's difficult for parents when they're like, I can't take a 3-year-old to a restaurant because they're going to lose their mind if there's no chicken nuggets or whatever. And yes, it is difficult to go to those experiences and feel like we're losing our cool about something, whatever it is. And then later, hopefully we go back and have a conversation with the child and we're like, look, I lost my cool there for a minute. I am not always, the most agreeable person, and I will get upset. I will get frustrated. I will get overwhelmed. And I don't know sometimes how to behave in a way that is not productive to my parenting, right? We apologize, hopefully, to our children to acknowledge, hey, that was not my best moment. I did lose myself there for a minute in my anger or frustration. I lost myself in worrying about what people would think. I remember my really good friend had mentioned to me one day, we had gone to a restaurant, whatever, and Loon was losing her mind. She was 2 or 3. And she was like, just let her. And I was like, no, that would be awful. And then I did one time, and I was just like, oh, that was not the worst thing. But our kids don't learn how to behave in a restaurant until we take them to restaurants. They don't learn how to behave in church if we don't take them to church. And I'm not saying everybody has to take their kids to church. I'm just saying, if that's part of your experience, if that is something that you value, we have to orient ourselves to this new experience of having a little in that space. But we tend to lose ourselves. And so often too, thinking about if you're trying to have a faith-based experience and you want it to be something where you can pay attention and when you can get something from it, and you're worried about a wiggly 3-year-old or 4-year-old or whatever, or in my case, I was a sullen teenager. I was just the epitome of teenage angst. Everything made me roll my eyes. Everything was just, so stupid. My mom talks about the fact that, we would go on a hike or whatever, and I'd have my head in a book and just not want to participate. I wanted to lose myself in not having that experience. And I don't know that I feel bad that I was so frustrated and I was so angry a lot of the time. I think we talked about the fact that I have lost myself in anger before. And I have more grace with that version of myself, understanding that she was going through things, like she was having a hard time. But it's really easy to lose ourselves in our teenage experience, right? Where it's just like, ugh, everything is annoying. But recognizing that, yeah, that's the experience in the moment. And I know that like 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old me was just like, this is going to be forever. This whole stupid experience is just, um, and now at 52, I'm like, that wasn't even that bad still, and you didn't have to put everybody else through your mood issues. I was thinking about my 20s, and there will be a book about my 20s someday. But really thinking about like becoming a mom and trying to figure out how to raise a little human and also try to figure out how to adult at the same time. And I often say, like, I'm really grateful that I had my daughter when I was young, because then I didn't know what I didn't know, right? I was just like, I'll figure it out. And I did. But I remember losing myself or feeling as though this, terrible 20s was going to last forever. And I lost sight of wonder and gratitude and joy. I think I shared with you guys before, like I still have a really good friend who at the time, she would come and get me on the weekends, or, we'd plan trips and go and do things, and we still do. But she got me out of my own freaking head and reminded me of the things that I really valued and really enjoyed. And she brought that back to my life. And I have shared with clients often, especially when they're in their early 20s, they're just like, I need to have it all together. I need to figure out all the things. And I remind them, like, you will. But right now, your 20s are for messing up. Like, you're gonna have bad relationships. You're gonna make bad financial choices. You're going to live in really dumb places. You're going to, all of those things. And that's part of it, right? You're not supposed to be really good at everything all the time right away, right? You're supposed to lose yourself in these moments. And then what I know to be true is that you will find your way back to yourself. And some of those, core things that you held so tightly then don't become so important. These other things become important. Your values will change many times in your life, in the experiences that you have. And so as you redefine that foundation of who you are, then you can come back to it, right? In those moments where you lose yourself to whatever it is that's happening, right? The situation or circumstance, the relationship, the grief, the loss, the party, whatever it is, right? You can come back to you. And it's interesting because the people around us often will say, I miss the old you. Well, there are reasons for that, right? Because the older version of you, the previous version, they were dealing with those things at that time. But as we have new experiences and as we have new circumstances and we lose parts and gain parts and all the things, like, we become a different version. And, it's important to sit down with the people around us and say things like, hey, let me introduce you to this version of me, these things that are important to who I am today. Let me share with you who I am and what I'm about, and give them the opportunity to meet this new version of you. I have spoken often of like your head and your heart, right, and your intuition. And so when you align that pillar of who you are and come back to yourself and come back to the things that are important to you and the behavior, the things that you share with yourself, then it's easier to go away, lose yourself in a moment, and then come back, right? Because I travel so often, I take myself with me everywhere I go. But it's easy for me to do, right? I have a ready to go overnight bag of like essentials or staples of like what I go and do. I'm a creature of habit and I like to have my stuff. And so I have like duplicates of most of the things that I use on a regular basis in this bag. And I refill it every time I travel, and so it's got my vitamins and my supplements and the things that I enjoy, the face cream that I use or the lotion that I prefer, all of those things. But when I went on my trip, I didn't I took the essentials, right? But then I had access to all this other stuff, and often would say I'm not going to space. I'm going to a place with um, an established, country with stores and all the things. And I was able to get all my needs met. But really thinking about the things that I take on a regular basis and the things that we take on a regular basis into new circumstances and situations is us. We show up with all of ourselves, right? All of our feelings, all of our preferences, all of those things that make us who we are into new situations. And sometimes if we go through something really challenging or difficult, if we start different things, we lose that in that situation or in that circumstance. We lose our compass of who am I and what am I about? And it's not until people show up in my office and they're I don't even know who I am anymore, right? Everybody around me is just walking on eggshells, waiting for me to get back to a version of myself, and I don't know who that is, right? And so I sit with them and I'm okay, well, tell me who you have been, right? Do those parts still fit? Do those aspects of who you are they still true? Do you still hold those values? Do you still feel that way about the things that you used to feel a certain way about? And it's helpful to then reorient yourself to you. And some of those parts fit and some of them don't. And again, I live in my experience all the time, and I am fully, comfortably, confidently in my experience, right? And so, yeah, in my new circumstance, it's so interesting. It's going to be September, in 3 days. But thinking about I've been in my new cozy space for almost a year now, and I have my habits and routines, right? There's some of them are the same and some of them are different. But I like being able to just be my full self. And I want to encourage you to take an opportunity, take an inventory of the things that you have done, for a significant amount of time, and does it still fit? Do you still do those things and have those relationships and have those values and thoughts and ideas? Or have there been new parts? And do those new parts, need fostering? People say I don't have any hobbies. I don't have anything I'm interested in. Or the things that I was interested in once, I'm no longer interested in. And it's okay, well, then how do you reorient yourself to the things that you enjoy doing? Or are there new things that you want to lose yourself in? Are there new situations or circumstances that you want to experience? And, every once in a while, come back to yourself. I encourage couples often to have check-ins, and so they're communicating with intention about the things that they are experiencing. And so part of that is to be hey, I lost myself in this really busy time at work, and so I want to come back to, I want to know what's going on with you. I want to know, what has happened while I was losing myself in work, right? Or losing myself in this situation where I had to take care of my mom or my dad, or, I was dealing with an infant, and now I want to come back to who we are and how do we do that, and who I am and what my body is about, because I just spent 40 weeks making a person, and the next 6 weeks orienting myself to this new individual who needs my body for all the things, and now I need to know who I am again, right? And so we lose ourselves often, and it would be helpful if we could find a path back to ourselves, whatever that looks like, right? And sometimes I know for me, one of the ways that I come back to myself often is a long road trip, or water, right? Being around green spaces. Those at the end of the week, often I will go for, hopefully, a 3-mile walk/run. And so this is the other thing, right? So I'd like to do that in the bosque. I like to be close to the water. There is no water in our river right now, but there's water in the ditches. But I recently have invested my time. So Yes, I do my walk/run regularly every morning, all the things. But I also used to love going for bike rides, especially in the bosque. And I sold my bike when I left, but I inherited a bike from my former podcast host, Kat. It was in the storage unit, and she was like, just keep it. I haven't ridden a bike in forever. And so, yeah, I'm reorienting myself. I'm coming back to that version of me that loved to ride a bike, right? Go for a bike ride on the Bosque Trail that goes through the whole city. And I got a basket for the dog, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited to like get back to that version of myself because I haven't done it in so long. And I'm really looking forward to this version of me being able to do that, right? Coming back to myself. I lost myself for a while and I can come back to me. And I want you guys to recognize that you can and have lost parts of you, right? And if they still fit, you got to go and check it out. You got to go and do those things or have those conversations or even just reorient yourself to the people that are in your life. And that's why I love check-ins. I love check-ins with my friends, right? I haven't seen them in a long time. And I love being able to either have a conversation on the phone or go and sit on a patio somewhere and have a meal and have a beverage and be able to sit with them and reconnect and come back to that version of myself, right? And come back to that relationship. And so it's nice to be able to recognize that losing yourself isn't always a negative thing. It happens. We do it all the time, right? But if you can come back to yourself, that's the part where you get to reorient who you are and what you're about and really recognize, like, what is it that I have missed and how can I foster that? How can I feed that? How can I take care of that person that is inside of me, right? Those childlike things. I used to love riding my bike when I was a kid. I think I got my first bike when I was maybe 7, maybe younger. I do remember a small bike in Chama. Anyway, 4 or 5. I used to love riding my bike. And I would ride up and down the street and do all the things. And so being able to do that at 52, a different bike, right? When I got it checked out and I tires checked and brakes checked and chain checked and all the things. And so now I get to come back to that version of me. And so think about those things that you feel as though you have missed, that you haven't done. I have so many clients that are creative and, they do creative things. I have so many friends that are creative and do creative things. I have so many friends that are spiritual and, have faith-based practices that they've maybe gotten away from because they've been busy or they just haven't done it. Whatever it is, right? Find those things that make you feel the most authentic version of you and get back to doing it. Start practicing, something that people who are musical, right? My ex-husband would play guitar. He also played the trumpet. And so getting back to doing those things brings you back to yourself, whatever it is. So figure out what it is for you, right? If you haven't moved your body around in a while and that brings you back to you, do that, right? If you haven't meditated in a while and you used to really enjoy doing that, do that, right? If you haven't spent time with people that make you feel loved and welcome and, cared for, do that. But whatever it is that brings you back to you, it's okay to lose yourself, but recognize that you can always come back home to the version of you that you value and appreciate. So there's your nugget. So I have been recording this whole time. I'm going to work on editing and putting it on YouTube. But thank you for everyone who's been on this journey with me to kind of figure this out. There's your nugget. And I hope that you get something valuable from it. Thank you to everyone who's listening, who continues to listen and puts in the work to work on themselves. It is not easy to evolve in this human form, but it's something that happens all the time. And so kind of like we talked about last time, we all have the ability to change. And the people in our lives come through and change, and they're not always the same. But you are always the same. You have this relationship with you. And so foster it, take care of it. Make sure that you are doing those things that bring you peace, joy, experience. And as you go through really hard things, trust that you can get through it. Because I have seen a lot of you get through some really difficult, challenging things. And you will come away with new parts. You will come away maybe with less parts, right? But you continue to be in relationship with you. So know that you can lose yourself and always come back. So there's your nugget. I'm going to end, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.